Everyone talks about becoming a millionaire, but nobody talks about the first 10,000. Probably because 10 grand doesn't sound impressive. You can't retire on it, you can't buy a Tesla, and you definitely can't flex it on social media with a caption about financial freedom. But here's the truth, that first $10,000 is the hardest money you'll ever make and the most important. It's not about the amount, it's about what it represents. The first 10 grand is the line between I can't save and this actually works. It's when the math starts to flip in your favor. Before it, every dollar feels like it's sprinting out of your account. After it, you start realizing you weren't cursed, you were just undisciplined. That first 10K isn't luck, it's structure, sacrifice, and the uncomfortable realization that you've been the problem all along. People glamorize the millionaire stage because it sounds like victory. But you don't need $1 million to change your life, you need proof. $10,000 sitting quietly in your account is that proof. It's the first sign you're in control, the first brick in a foundation that can actually hold something bigger. The first 10K doesn't make you rich, it makes you dangerous, because once you learn you can build that, you start realizing you can build anything. Your first $10,000 isn't about money, it's about identity. Up until that point, you're just surviving. You make money, spend it, promise yourself you'll do better next month, then repeat. Every paycheck disappears like you're trying to hold water in your hands. But the first 10K, that's when something inside your brain snaps. Suddenly you stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like a builder. You go from, I need more income, to I need more discipline. That's the flip. Before that, you treat money like a guest. It comes, stays for a day, eats your food, and leaves without saying goodbye. But after you hit that 10K, money starts to feel like an employee, something you manage, track, and assign tasks to. You start seeing each dollar as a soldier, not a souvenir. And once you see your cash that way, everything changes. You start asking, what's the best use of this army, instead of what can I buy right now? It's not about greed, it's about momentum. The first 10K takes forever, because you're learning how to outsmart yourself. Every temptation, every impulse, every I deserve it purchase is resistance training for your financial willpower. The truth is, your first 10K is 90% psychology and 10% math. After all, saving money isn't about how much you earn, it's about how much of your ego you can shut up. And here's the kicker, once you cross that line, you can never go back. That first chunk of savings rewires your brain. Suddenly spending $200 on something stupid doesn't feel rewarding anymore, it feels like betrayal. You stop chasing shiny things because you've tasted something better. Control. And nothing hits harder than realizing you've spent most of your adult life trading freedom for instant gratification. The irony? Most people never get there. Not because they can't, but because they never believe they can. They think saving 10K is impossible, while spending 10K one purchase at a time is somehow fine. They're addicted to financial motion without direction, always working, always broke. The first 10K breaks that illusion. It proves you're not stuck because the system hates you. You're stuck because your habits do. That's why the first 10K matters so much. It's not the amount, it's the proof. The proof that your choices compound, that your effort matters, that discipline actually works. And once you've seen that, good luck going back to pretending you're bad with money. Here's the part nobody tells you. Once you hit that first 10K, something magical happens. Not in the manifest it with crystals way, but in the cold, mathematical, capitalistic way. Your money starts to move. It stops being a puddle and starts becoming a current. That's the first taste of compound momentum, the point where time stops working against you and starts working for you. Before this, every dollar you earned was about survival. Pay the bills, buy the groceries, maybe sneak in a small treat so life doesn't feel like a spreadsheet. But once you have $10,000 sitting in an account untouched, something inside you shifts. You start seeing time differently. You realize that every dollar you keep is a tiny worker, clocking in 24 hours a day, multiplying in the background while you sleep. For the first time, your money is doing the heavy lifting, and it doesn't complain, doesn't call in sick, doesn't need motivation. The hardest part is getting that initial momentum. Think of it like pushing a car. Those first few feet take everything you've got. But once it starts rolling, the physics take over. The first 10K is the push. It's not about speed, it's about inertia. You've proven to yourself that you can control the flow. After that, the system begins to reward you. Interest, dividends, opportunities, leverage. The world suddenly opens up. Not because it changed, but because you did. That's when the compounding mindset kicks in. You stop asking, how can I make money fast? And start asking, how can I make it grow forever? That question alone separates you from 90% of people. The broke mindset is transactional. I work, I get paid, I spend. The wealthy mindset is exponential. I plant, I water, I wait. Once you have capital, patience becomes a weapon. But here's the dark side of momentum. It works both ways. If you stay careless, compound interest will work against you through debt, fees, and inflation. The same physics that makes savings grow will make mistakes explode. That's why the first 10K is such a dangerous threshold. You've learned enough to play the game, but not enough to realize the game plays back. Still, this is the tipping point. Once you understand momentum, the obsession changes. You no longer dream about luxury. You dream about growth. You stop fantasizing about spending money and start obsessing over multiplying it. And when you wake up one day and realize your money made more money while you were asleep than you used to make in a week at your job, that's when it clicks. That's why your first 10K matters. It's not wealth yet, it's traction. It's the moment your money stops being a slave and becomes your ally. Motivation is what gets you started. Discipline is what keeps you from going broke again. Everyone loves the idea of saving money until they realize it's not exciting. It's repetitive, boring, and brutally honest. Nobody claps for you when you pack lunch instead of ordering takeout. There's no dopamine rush when you transfer $50 to savings. It's not glamorous, but that's the point. The game is won by the boring ones. Most people fail financially because they rely on motivation, those short bursts of energy that come after watching a self-help video at 2 a.m. They'll set goals, make spreadsheets, swear this time will be different, and then crumble the second life gets inconvenient. Real financial growth begins when you stop needing to feel inspired. When saving money isn't a decision, it's a reflex. When investing becomes as normal as brushing your teeth. The first 10K forces this discipline on you. It's the process that changes you. You start skipping impulse buys, not because you can't afford them, but because they're irrelevant. You stop chasing every limited time sale because you realize every sale is just a trick to empty your account. You begin to crave stability more than excitement. That's the moment you shift from consumer to controller, when comfort starts to come from watching your balance grow, not your Amazon cart. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. You'll slip up. You'll have months where expenses punch harder than expected. But discipline is about the bounce back. It's about looking at a bad month and saying, that hurt. Let's not do that again. Every cycle builds emotional muscle. Every small win reinforces the habit. Before long, you stop negotiating with yourself about money. You just execute. And here's the part no one wants to admit. Discipline feels like punishment at first because it exposes how sloppy you've been. It's humbling to realize how much of your struggle came from your own lack of control. But that sting, that's growth. The same way the gym hurts before you get stronger, discipline burns before it frees you. By the time you hit your first 10K, motivation is gone. You don't need it anymore. You've built systems. Automation replaces willpower. You transfer money without emotion. You budget automatically. You invest routinely. You've replaced adrenaline with rhythm, and that's where the magic happens. Because the truth is, financial freedom isn't exciting. It's consistent. The discipline loop is the quiet revolution of your financial life. It's not glamorous, it's not viral, but it's the reason some people quietly build empires while everyone else keeps posting quotes about manifesting success. Here's what nobody tells you about having money. It doesn't just buy stuff, it buys options. And your first $10,000 is the down payment on freedom. It's not a yacht, it's not an investment property, it's something way more powerful. Leverage. The ability to make choices from calm instead of desperation. When you're broke, every decision is tainted by survival. You can't quit the toxic job because rent is due. You can't take a risk because you need that next paycheck. You stay in bad situations, jobs, relationships, cities, not because you want to, but because you can't afford to leave. That's not living. That's financial captivity. The first 10K cracks that cage. It's not enough to escape forever, but it's enough to breathe, enough to say no once in your life without fear of starving. That small safety net changes your psychology. Suddenly, your boss's threats sound less terrifying. You start negotiating with confidence instead of begging. You don't panic when the car breaks down or the laptop dies because you've built a buffer between life's chaos and your emotions. That buffer is priceless. It's not wealth, it's stability. And stability feels like peace. People underestimate what small wealth does to your brain. It removes noise. You stop making frantic, short-term decisions. You start thinking in months, then years. You don't take the first opportunity that appears. You wait for the right one. That's how real progress begins, when you stop moving out of fear and start moving with purpose. Ironically, that first 10K also humbles you. You realize how long it took to earn it, how fragile it can be, and how easily bad habits could destroy it. You stop romanticizing risk and start respecting patience. You stop envying other people's wins because you know what it costs to build your own. That's the freedom effect. It's not about retiring early or living on a beach. It's about the mental shift that happens when you're no longer broke enough to panic, but not rich enough to relax. It's the middle ground where discipline meets confidence, the zone where you make smarter decisions because for once you're not cornered, and that's what changes everything. When you have a financial cushion, you buy back your greatest asset, time. You think clearer, act slower, decide smarter. The first 10K isn't about luxury, it's about leverage. And once you've tasted even a drop of that freedom, you'll never want to live without it again. Here's the real secret of wealth. It doesn't come from one big move. It comes from momentum, that slow, relentless accumulation of small wins. The first 10K teaches you this better than any book or podcast ever could, because once you've done the impossible, once you've stacked discipline, patience, and focus long enough to see results, something clicks. You stop chasing shortcuts. You start compounding effort. The snowball mindset is simple but rare. Most people roll their financial snowball halfway down the hill, then stop to admire it. They spend it, downgrade their goals, or sabotage themselves because patience feels like punishment. The people who win, they keep rolling. They understand that once the snowball starts moving, every small push multiplies. Every extra dollar saved, every dumb purchase avoided, every bit of progress builds on itself. At first, the growth feels microscopic, painfully slow. A few bucks of interest here, a small dividend there. It's boring. But that boredom is the system working. Momentum doesn't feel exciting when you're in it. It feels stable, predictable, calm. And in a world addicted to chaos, calm is a superpower. The beauty of the snowball is that it scales not just your money, but your mindset. Once you realize how small wins compound financially, you start noticing they compound everywhere. Reading one page becomes finishing a book. Going to the gym once becomes consistency. Saying no to one impulse purchase becomes budgeting naturally. Discipline stops being something you do. It becomes who you are. That's the ultimate reward of the first 10K. You stop seeing money as something you chase and start seeing it as something you shape. You understand that wealth isn't a finish line, it's a rhythm. And once that rhythm sets in, life stops feeling like an emergency. You start to breathe differently. You start to move differently. And that's when you realize the first 10K wasn't the goal. It was the ignition. Here's the truth nobody glamorizes. Your first 10K won't feel like success. It'll feel like a quiet victory only you understand. No one will clap. No one will notice. But you will, because you'll know how much sacrifice, restraint, and delayed gratification it took to build it. It's the kind of pride that doesn't need applause. It needs protection. That money will change how you see everything. Every purchase becomes a decision. Every opportunity gets measured against your freedom. You stop thinking, can I afford this? And start thinking, is this worth slowing down my momentum? That shift from spending emotionally to acting strategically is the difference between staying stuck and breaking orbit. And here's what makes it beautiful. Once you've built your first 10K, you'll never be broke the same way again. You might lose money. You might face setbacks, but you'll never lose the skill that built it. You'll never forget the feeling of control, the satisfaction of watching growth that came from discipline, not luck. You've proven you can do the hard thing, and that changes everything. The world loves to worship the millionaire, the entrepreneur, the investor, but the real power starts smaller, with the person quietly stacking their first 10 grand, rewiring their habits, and deciding that from now on, money moves differently around them. So here's the challenge. Stop dreaming about the million. Build the 10. Prove to yourself that you can stay consistent long enough to change your trajectory. Because that first $10,000, it's not the finish line. It's the moment you stop being owned by money and start owning yourself.